Evocative Media, the real voice of Faversham. Welcome to Faversham Voices.
So my name's Julie Mannouch, and I was born, my maiden name was Dane, and I was born in January 1963. And I was born in Preston Grove, and my mother still lives in the same house that I was born in. Grew up in Preston Grove. I had a very good friend that lived 2 doors up from me, Claire Bampton. I had a very good friend that lived in the Mall, Sandra Beanie. The schools that I went to were, Ethelbert Road Infants, and obviously that was just from 5 to 7. And then at 7, I went down to the district school juniors. And then, so I was at Ethelbert Road from 1968 to 71. In 1971 to 74 at the district school juniors, and then from 74 to 79 at Queen Elizabeth's.
What was Ethelbert like?
There, I loved that school, and my first teacher was Mrs. Tyrrell, and she was like somewhere between a cross between your favourite grandma and a cuddly aunt, because she was just lovely to be your first teacher.
How did you get to school?
Parents, they would sort of take it in turns. There were a group of us that sort of lived fairly close, and so they would all take it in turns to take, half a dozen of us to school, and then, but I would generally come home for lunch and then back again in the afternoon because I didn't like school dinners. I can remember then when I went to the district school, that's when I would walk to school with Sandra, who lived in the Mall, but we would walk together. We weren't accompanied then. We would walk to school and back. That was okay. It was all right. It was a bigger school. I can remember one school trip there where we went to Charlton Paper Mill. I think we were learning about how to make paper.
What is your earliest memory of Faversham?
Oh, my earliest memory of Faversham. That's a hard one. I can remember perhaps going to the rec, because the rec was closer to us than the Mount, so I can remember more about the rec. And I've got early memories, but of the town, probably when I started to go to school, really, most clearly, and walking to Ethelbert Road. I can also remember Plumridge's shoe shop, which is where TUI, the travel agency, is now. That used to be the Clark shoe shop, and that's where I had to go and get my Clark school shoes. I can remember lots and lots of shops. I can remember the top of the town being mainly the Co-op, with all the different things that it had, white goods. I can remember a Co-op chemist, Co-op shoe shop, Co-op outfitters. There was always been a bakery at the top, which was Kingsnorth's, wasn't it? I think that's Kingsnorth's. Where Cosgrove's coffee shop is now used to be Burr's, and that used to sell children's clothes, so sometimes I might have been taken in there. I can remember Fine Fair, where Superdrug is now. I can remember Boots a Chemist being where Present Times Card Shop is now, before it moved to where Faversham Town Council is, before it moved to where it is now. I can remember shops in St Mary's Road as well, because my grandma and granddad lived in St Mary's Road. So I can remember the bakery that was just down from them. There was a shoe shop just across the road where the Shropodist is now. And then opposite the shoe shop there was a butcher shop where the school outfitters clothes shop is now. You go down a little bit, there was Goldie's sweet shop. Down a little bit further, and there was, some people knew it as Knights and some people knew it as Camps, and that was a little general store that sold sweets. And then just down from then there was the Co-op, where I think it's a microbrewery now, so I can remember those. I'm just trying to remember the name of the bakery that was in St Mary's Road, because my grandma used Fags Bakers.
Tell us about the Danes.
The Danes were all oyster fishermen, and I think they go back hundreds and hundreds of years. My granddad on that side my dad's dad worked for Faversham Oyster Company Limited, which is either the oldest registered company in the world or the second oldest company in the world. And my uncle, my father's youngest brother, has traced it back to King John. So it's very, very old. The company's still in existence. But the oyster fishery business really disappeared, I think, in the early 1900s. I think there was some problems with food poisoning and what have you, and then oyster fishery in general disappeared for a long time. And the Danes all lived around about the Front Brents and the Keys, and there were many branches of the family. But my grandfather, I think, was born in what is now in the Albion pub, and his father was publican there as well as being a fisherman. So my family on that side go back absolutely hundreds and hundreds of years, and I'm proud of that. Really proud of it. I have some shares in the Faversham Oyster Fishery Company. They're not worth anything, but the history of it is really important to me, because I'm really, really proud of what a really hard life they must have had to have made some sort of living. My dad was born on the Front Brents, in some cottages, which I think that was black cottages on Crab Island, and he moved when he was 3, because the cottages kept flooding, and it must have been, not as we see it today. It must have been pretty difficult to live down in that area with cottages that flooded all the time, and hard living. It was my granddad on my other side, on my maternal side, and he left school and went to work at the shipyard, Pollock's shipyard, and he worked there all his working life till he retired at 65, and unfortunately died at 66. Because he died when I was 10, so 1973, but he worked there all his life.
Did you see him in a sideways launch?
I think I've spotted him just in amongst everybody else. He always had his raincoat on and his flat cap, and my grandma only died 13 years ago, but she was 98 when she died, and she worked at Benstead House for some of her working life. So, and they originate, well, my grandma originated from Ham Road, from Marsh Works. So the whole family is intertwined and part of Faversham.
What is it you like about Faversham?
What I like is the fact that people are interested in the town enough to make, for example, we spoke about Abbey Street earlier, didn't we, about and how that was preserved, and that's what I like. I like that change where we start to look after our heritage, what we've got here. I'm unhappy when I see the change maybe in when we don't take care of things. When I think the recreation ground is having quite a lot of work done at the moment, and then you read reports that people have been in there and have been vandalising things. Now I don't like the change in that, but there's lots of building work happening here. I can't disagree with that, because I think it's a nice place to live, and people will want to live here, and people need houses. But it would change. It may change the town with more people here. I don't know that there's things I don't like about it. I'm so intertwined with this town, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. Character changes from time to time, doesn't it? Depending on who you've got in, maybe in charge, who you've got living here. It always changes a little bit, but I think essentially there's still, Faversham is still there, and some outside people criticise that. I don't like that. If you don't live here, then don't criticise it. Change is always going to happen, so I'm fairly relaxed about that, as long as it's done properly and not for change's sake. Can't see a problem with that, really. I've grown up here. Our business is here. My life is here. I'm quite content here. It's a nice place to live. You're not very far away from the sea. not very far away from a large town if you want it. Yeah, that's it really.